Hello everyone, Justin with Deep Dive Stocks here, and today is Wednesday, September 17th, and this is your After Hours Market Dive. Starting as usual with ES Futures on the daily, we see it was a red day, negative 0.13%, but we've been monitoring this kind of stagnating price after this bearish liquidity, and so the idea was that with bullish liquidity, things should go up, but with stagnating price and an encroaching LDPM, some concern that we might need to touch that LDPM L5 for support. And if we zoom in on the 15-minute, quite a wild day. I think yesterday we left off, right, with this general idea of bearishness. So if we go ahead and take a look, yeah, we had this bearish, brief moments of bullish liquidity. So we get bullish, we go to resistance, LDPM, we get rejected, we try again, get rejected, try again, get rejected, but this time with persistent bearish liquidity and then some wild behavior. Looks like quite the bid in the ask, battling it out. So we had this bearish candle, this bullish candle. So remember, so this is, I guess, which we should start. So this is a bearish LDPM stack. So we keep getting these like probably very eager, aggressive bids walking in during kind of creating these mini bull traps. And then it looks like both times they get rejected off of LDPM resistance. The first time off of L6. The second time it looks like made it through L6, but immediately rejected off of L7. And then we're left with this bearish liquidity and this bearish LDPM stack. So if it wasn't too obvious, the outlook is pretty bearish still for ES futures moving into or ending the after hours. And as we approach, as we approach after hours, after market at 6 p.m. So pretty bearish, I bet that was an annoying day for some. Let's check the 5-minute. Here we can see these little bullish spurts. Moving to NVDA on the daily, we've been tracking the bearish liquidity, especially as it was up here, but the outlook was always that it was going to test the LDPM support, since LDPS was painting the candles red for bearish, and that looks like it happened, and the support has already failed. That LDPM L5 spot is now below it with that bearish liquidity still. So now we expect movement down to LDPM L7 at 159.88 at present. If we look at the 15-minute, what do we see? Kind of the same as on ES. So at least the idea that we had this very choppy moment. So we ended yesterday with this bearish liquidity, brief moment of bullish. Looks like it doesn't even really make it that close to LDPM, but gets rejected with bearish liquidity. We try again. Probably an eager bid, aggressive bid in these like after hours, pre-market hours. Bearish liquidity continued. Brought things down. Looks like we rejected off of LDPM L5 towards the end of the market with that bullish liquidity, and right as things ended, we jumped over. So this is technically now a bull trap. As we notice, we have 7, 6, 5 for LDPM, and then but we have bullish liquidity for LDPS. So because those are mixed, we know that this is a bull trap. The outlook is, as usual, still, even though it's a bull trap, what bull trap designates is really that the price is going to go up, but we need to be particularly mindful for rapid reversion, right? We need to kind of be mindful for we slightly get near that next level of resistance, and then we experience a massive candle of rejection. And that's kind of what the bull trap designator is telling us. And it's telling us that that is the most likely event. That, but is in terms of each individual step along the way of that process, we have to typically make it to those resistances. So we're still going to expect price movement up to LDPM L6, which is currently 1.77%. So perhaps some mean reversion tomorrow. And then, but then we got to be careful. We got to keep a close eye out on how spot and liquidity react as they reach that resistance. So on the daily bearish and even on the 15, we have that near-term bullish liquidity, but it's in the setting of a bull trap. So, you know, bullish to an extent, bullish in spirit, but in practical terms, we should expect downside. On GME, we've been monitoring this bullish liquidity, and it's a very similar expectation. We do expect movement still up to that 29.43 mark. Looks like today was a little bit of a red day, 0.91%, but not too terrible. It's terrible if it's a red day and then liquidity turns bearish, but that hasn't happened. So let's turn on to the 15-minute. And it looks like a kind of a similar thing. This pre-market gets inundated with this bearish liquidity. It looks like, unfortunately, though, whereas yesterday, as soon as market opened, we had that nice bullish liquidity pop in. It looks like this time around, however, that is not what happened. It looks like the market's opened. So we had that bullish liquidity price. Kind of we expect it's going to meet LDPM. We do get a little bit of flashing before they two meet. So we break through, we fall to the support, and this is whereabouts that bullish liquidity came in yesterday, but it didn't. Bearish liquidity continued. And it looks like we are now bearish, but resting on LDPM L6 for support, which unfortunately on the near term isn't the most bullish of expectations. The ideal in this situation is that the support injects, so the LDPM L6 here is representing an organic bid. So the best outcome for a bullish outlook right now would be that this organic bid injects enough bullish liquidity and moves things back up to LDPM L7. But unfortunately right now, as the liquidity conditions stand, we still have LDPS painting red candles, so the outlook is still bearish, unfortunately. Moving to Bitcoin, we see this, so we had this bear trap form. Wish there was an easy way to, I guess that's the easy way to do it. So we had this bear trap form. This is on the daily. We test support. Support holds. We dip a little bit below, but support holds. We bounce back up, and then as we reach that LDPM L6 resistance, we start getting bullish liquidity, and that's pretty positive. That means that the tides are changing, so we should be able to make it over this. And it looks like we have, but now LDPM L5 is acting as a bit of a resistance, so it looks like we're getting squeezed between LDPM L5 and LDPM L6. And that's fine in the sense that it's probably, aggravating, because since this is the daily, so this has been price bound now for, I guess at least this week. But as long as LDPS maintains its bullish prints, then it should break through eventually. Checking in on the 15-minute, we see, so things definitely got bearish. So what's this? Wednesday, today is Wednesday. So if we go to the start of the day, or I guess a little bit before, this is Tuesday at 6, so Tuesday in the evening. So we know we're probably going to touch L5. We get bearish liquidity, we regain bullish, we get bearish again, we fall through, we have this aggressive ask, we fall all the way down to L6, we fall through it, we get rejected off of these resistances, even with that bullish liquidity. That's a lot of repeat tests of LDPM L6 actually. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can even count this 6. So like 6 rapid successive attempts to overtake this, and each time it looks like the ask just smacked it back down. The difference this time, however, conditions have changed somewhat. On the near term, we do have this introduction of the bullish liquidity, which is somewhat exciting. It does tell us that we're going to test LDPM and L6 likely again, because now we've switched back to bullish, and the odds of overtaking those are in our favor. We do have, though, some early signs. Notice how all these LDPMs are pointed upwards in unison. That's always a good sign to just check the eager parties, see if there's any profit taking, or if they're all behaving that way, if there's any aggressive parties present. And we don't really see any. So if there were things that we would be looking for are these sort of like very exaggerated movements by those lighter, fainter LDPMs, which they represent the profit takers, the dip buyers, those eager parties that are in and out scalpers, I think, is another way you could phrase it. And we don't really see any grotesque scalping behavior. And actually, the LDPMs, as I say, it seems that the ask that was present has subsided. So LDPM has relaxed a little bit. But yeah, so this is pretty bullish, honestly. Well, not pretty bullish. I mean, we still have to make it, looks like even with the bullish liquidity, we failed twice to overtake these resistances, but we're going to try again because liquidity is bullish, and that's what bullish liquidity does. If we take a quick look at the scanner, see how things are going for the after hours. We have some, for crypto, we have bullish skies. So it looks like almost right around 3 p.m. I was going to say as market closed, but a little before. Conditions became predominantly bullish on crypto. It's exciting. We do have, it seems, some less than bullish prints on Binance, which is this top row. And it's kind of a theme I've noticed. Binance typically, I mean, this is just anecdotal, but whenever I check this screen, I always notice that Binance is always struggling more than the others. So I don't know why that would be. I have no idea really how the crypto exchanges work, but that is just an observation. And so, yeah, it looks like the conditions are, so this is a lot of attempts too. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I don't know if I've seen that many just like, I'm going to get yous, and then you don't. Especially, we're on balance, right? Sometimes you might see that with aggressive, if you're kind of like, if LDPS is aggressively, going to indicate like, there's a bid here, and it's slightly more aggressive than the others, so it's, change the candle color. Balance, it needs to be a little bit more convinced, and so this is pretty unusual. So, but bullish, so we expect continued testing of those supports, and so that's what we will need to keep an eye out for. NVIDIA is looking wholly bearish until something changes, right? So just kind of does expect the stepwards down type pattern. And then GME is looking on the near term on unsteady grounds. I think if I were a betting man, I think I would expect a little bit of pullback down back to 25 at LDPM L7, just because of how that 15 minutes is looking, if this near-term support kind of gives. So that would be within my realm of like, okay, if this happens, it happens. It's not going to be too devastating. I should still expect overall things to, appreciate, especially if LDPS is continuing to paint bullish prints on the daily. But with this data on the near term in the 15 minutes, a little bit of a pullback doesn't look too unreasonable. And it looks like we're well on our way here on Bitcoin to test that LDPM L6 resistance once more. So that'll definitely be something to keep an eye out for sure. But all right, guys, I'll leave you here with that. This has been fun, exciting day. I imagine this must have been very frustrating for some. This has failed. And these are, I mean, LDPM and L7 and L6 have collapsed onto one another. So if we consider them one and the same, which is what happened, like what that means when the two collapse, these are all, I mean, this is a bear trap. So you really shouldn't expect that much resistance getting like in the recovery phase of a bear trap. So particularly interesting. But all right, that'll be something for you to play around with and dig into the data to see what happened. But all right, guys, I'm going to leave you here. Exciting times. It looks like the market is starting to groan a little bit. And so keep a close eye out on liquidity. And if they're actually, before I leave, I think someone did want to talk about Walmart, if I'm not mistaken. So Walmart on the daily has, so we have a mixed LDPM stack. It's kind of hard to just say if it's a bullish or bearish when both LDPM and L5 and L6 are kind of like very nicely defined above L7. So it's kind of like a little bit of a sandwich. But we've definitely had these swings in liquidity. So we had this bullish liquidity for a while. LDPM L7 was tested for support. Looks like it gave a little bit of an injection of bullish liquidity, but it failed to make it over LDPM L6. It's like putting gas in your rocket car, but just not enough. So then we fall back through, we fell all the way back down to LDPM L5, and it looks like we got another injection of fuel. Was enough to make it over LDPM L7, but now we're struggling over LDPM L6 right now. It looks like today we tried to make it over it, but fell back down. The good news is things haven't returned bearish yet, but that'll definitely be something to keep an eye out for as the markets open and in the next day or two. And then I was going to say we could, as usual, zoom into the 15-minute to see what more local conditions are looking like. And here we already see that introduction of the bearish liquidity. So things do seem to be leaning bearish on Walmart for both the daily and the near term. Yeah, it looks like today we had that bull trap, right? This is less of a mixed environment, right? We definitely have 5 and then 6 and then 7 with this bullish LDPS. So the day opened immediately to this bull trap, which immediately collapsed at around 2 p.m. Hit support, bounced a little bit, and then it looks like the rocket car ran out of fuel, bearish liquidity returned, and now we're resting on LDPMs for support with that bearish liquidity. So outlook here is bearish because the LDPS is telling us that, you can delay it as much as you want, but if the bearish liquidity continues, then those LDPMs are going to fail. And sooner rather than later, as long as the LDPS is bearish. So, and then again on the daily, like I said, it's mixed, but, we definitely failed that LDPM L6. We failed to take over that LDPM L6 with that bullish liquidity. And we kind of have this precedence of hitting a support, getting a little bit of an injection, and then it not being enough to make it over that resistance, and then falling back down. And so a pattern is a pattern until it's not a pattern. And then unless we see, continued bullish prints for another, repeat attempts, if price starts to falter or stagnate, or if bearish liquidity returns, then the pattern will have patterned. So it's something to keep an eye out for. And I guess, because earnings are maybe, in a while, it's by November, but definitely something to keep an eye out for as that approaches. But all right, guys, I'll leave things there. See Solana, always bearish on Binance. But okay, guys, thank you for stopping by. This has been Justin with Deep Dive Stocks for your After Hours Market Dive, and I will see you guys next time. Thanks for chatting and hanging out. Adios.